This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So there's this new phenomenon taking over, just taking the world by storm. Granted, I'm from a small town. This is new to me. There wasn't even a mall in my town when I grew up. We were lucky when we got the big K, the big Kmart. And so anyways, I'm walking in the mall and I'm like, there's all these people walking past me and they're like wearing like suits and shoes, like jogging suits and shoes. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And I told Valerie about it and she's like, Johnny, oh my gosh, that's a thing. It's been around for a long time.
Right.
It's called mall walkers.
Yeah, different than The Walking Dead, the show on AMC.
Yeah. And
You've never heard of mall walkers before?
Man, where I was from, it was kind of cool if you went cow tipping, okay? So for those of you who don't know what cow tipping is, Google it. It's not the nicest thing to do to cows. But
so what should we do tonight? We go walk the mall or go tip a cow?
Yep. So, but in the studio today, we have Ryan Lundquist. If there was a rock star appraiser, somebody that shows up in a limo with fur coats, it'd be Ryan Lundquist.
Wow,
he's
that's
a
an
legend
interesting
here
picture.
locally. I mean, just envision it. You can see it. You can see it if you see this guy.
Yeah, no, I may be Ryan. I don't have that Ryan Gosling, fur coat Barbie look though.
Yeah,
so just
maybe.
to
Hey,
clarify.
maybe you can replace him in the sequel. But what we were talking about off the air was how you enjoy mall walking.
I do. And, it's relevant. My wife and I do the Citrus Heights Mall, and we join, Esther and Irma and, all the mall walkers. And, the reality is it's a reflection of fires.
Yeah.
We really didn't do that last year because we didn't have much of a fire season, but the mall is the perfect place to walk indoors when you can't exercise outdoors. And so I just want to say, the pro tip, do it if needed.
Are you there early in the morning waiting for them to open the doors? Like, let us in. We need to get our steps in.
No. We don't do that. I think that the mall actually does open the mall early though, for these
really?
people,
They do.
which is really cool. So VIPs, really.
So how many steps are you getting into the mall? Like, how many laps are you doing?
Okay, so I think I did 5 miles in there before.
Wow, really?
But
You're doing 5 miles in the mall? That's amazing.
It's honestly really hard to do that. It's hard for me in the neighborhood to do that too because it gets dull when you're just walking on concrete. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm walking on the American River trails, I can, that's fine.
You
but-
zone out. It's beautiful. Things to distract you.
Very tough on just concrete or asphalt though.
Interesting.
Because you can't run in the mall. You can only fast walk, right?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Maybe you can. I'm not sure what the rules are,
Anyway, so Ryan is a local appraiser. He's the guy, so many realtors. Like, I don't know a realtor who doesn't reach out to Ryan when they have a question. In fact, you helped us out recently. This was a stat that people are talking about more with the National Association of Realtors, the whole lawsuit, and there was a client who was selling a luxury property and was wondering, well, hey, how many people are actually still paying buyer commissions? And you pulled some numbers that just in 5 minutes that were absolutely very revealing about what this has to do in our industry. And it was over 90% of people are paying 2.5% on a luxury listing. So a lot of people say, hey, my house is worth $500,000. I don't want to pay so much. But there's people $1 million, $2 million, $3 million paying a lot of money. Did that surprise you to see that percentage, or?
Not really. I mean, first, I'm careful about that conversation because, oh man, it can be a hot mess online. But I do have access to those stats right now. That'll change in about a month when the lawsuit kicks in, and those stats won't even be in MLS anymore. But they're there now, and I have pulled some stuff. I've just haven't really shared it publicly because it just starts to be a volcano of conversations.
It's a volcano. Yeah, we don't need to go down that road. But it's just interesting how quickly and how fast you're able to pull stats. That was my big takeaway because when an agent reached out, actually, do you know how long we've known each other?
I don't know. It seems like a while.
It's been a while.
I knew you pre-kids.
Pre-kids, yes. Not pre-Valerie, but pre-kids. So Valerie and I, when we moved here in 2018...
Oh, that's right.
We were with a different brokerage, and there was a lot of heat about that brokerage, and I stumbled across your blog, and I was like, man, this guy is like really smart. And so I reached out to you, and you picked up the phone, and you were texting me back, and you were consummate professional, and I was like, this dude's really cool. And since then, we've always stayed in touch, and I've always respected your work because you take a nonpartisan stance. You're not like, hey, doomsday, hey, this is great. It's like, these are the numbers. I don't have a crystal ball, but this is the story the numbers are telling right now. And that's kind of the thread you've taken over the course of your career, correct?
Oh, absolutely. There's no sense in being caught up in sensationalism, really in anything, in politics and real estate. It just so often it doesn't pan out. And so it's like all these issues that people have their panties in a wad, this week about people are angry. Then I'm like, man, if you're not going to be angry about it in 30 days, like, why are you causing a fuss right now?
That's really the point.
And really the same thing in real estate. I think people get sidetracked and start inflaming some stats that don't really mean anything. So we've got to look and go, what's the real story? What's going on? That's the numbers always matter.
So what are some stats that you see a lot of people typically get fired up about?
Well, I think that when people see a rise in foreclosures, and it's almost at nothing still. 1% of sales were distressed. They were foreclosures or short sales during the first quarter. And that's 1% of a very small number of sales. And so I think that people look at a rise, though, technically over the past couple years and, start inflaming that and going, oh, we're all going to die, and going, okay, wait, hold on. We need some more context. But I don't know. There's always something every week. There's something new that, to be worried about, to be concerned about, whether in life or real estate. And, we just have to be careful about that stuff.
I agree. But I hear that conversation all the time with sellers and, more importantly, not importantly, but more specifically, buyers. They're like, hey, mortgage or foreclosures are up, short sales are up. I'm going to wait so I can get a deal. And it's like, are they? And then let's say the foreclosures are up. Let's say the world does come to an end. Who do you think you're going to be competing against? Like, there's a bunch of hedge funds. That's another thing that you talk about frequently too. Are the hedge funds? Bunch of hedge funds that would be interested in potentially buying here. There's a lot of local investors that would be interested in buying. And then there's the regular market that if prices do come down, they're going to want to jump in. So
definitely. Yeah. And relating to that, there's this stat that's been going around. It's even been shared by politicians, congressmen, and it's embarrassing that, they say that 44% of all sales have been from, these big institutions. And I don't know who invented this, but it's total fiction. And you could see, last year when you're looking at all sales, it's less than 1%, right? Now, in some markets, in Atlanta and different places, it is a higher percentage, but it's total fiction to embrace this idea that Wall Street is literally buying everything. And not to minimize our concern, but we've just got to have, I think, concern in the proper context when we're actually looking at numbers rather than some narrative that some bro invented that's been perpetuated even in Congress.
So in Sacramento, what's the percentage?
So I don't have a percentage. But I would say probably less than 2%. The biggest owner of properties is Invitation Homes, and they definitely own multiple thousands of properties, but they're also not in a place where they've purchased in recent years. The last sale that I saw them buy was about 2 years ago exactly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really. And the bulk of what they bought was 2012 and years subsequent to that, right? Mm-hmm. Now it's startling though. I actually made a map a few months back, and it shows the where these properties are owned, and it's wild because it's not dispersed throughout the whole market. It's really in a lot of first time buyer neighborhoods, and so and so even when you look at locally, you do the percentage, whatever that percentage is. It's not in Granite Bay and the same in Roseville, and you start to look in South Sac, and you start to look, in maybe first-time buyer price points, and go, okay, wow, it's a lot more concentrated there. And you look at California, it's nowhere in the middle. It's basically Sacramento and above, and then Southern California. And so,
I don't get that. I love the Central Valley, but nobody wants to.
Sorry, man. You guys don't have malls.
We don't have malls.
It's the problem.
There are some malls. It's not where I was from.
You guys are more interested in cow tipping. So there's some problems.
Well,
here,
that there is those multi-billionaire companies that are purchasing that property. I think it's in Solano.
Oh, in Fairfield, yeah.
Fairfield, yeah. So, they're trying to have you heard about that?
I have.
Developing
people always
a micro city.
Yeah, that their property values are going up. That's why we need to list higher than what the market suggests, because someday that city's going to get built. So that's the engagement I've had with it is people are expecting their property values to go up right now because someday that city's going to get built.
Would you consider that the Central Valley?
No.
Okay.
I would
Bay
probably
Area.
say
That's Bay Area.
Yeah, Bay Area.
It's Solano. Yeah, Solano is definitely Bay Area.
Yeah.
So what I would consider Central Valley, this is just my personal opinion, would probably start somewhere in like Lodi, Stockton, south, down to like Bakersfield. But I don't even consider Sacramento. Some people consider Sac to be part of the Central Valley, but not my perspective.
I think most locals would say NorCal, but for us.
There you go, NorCal. But speaking of, so we're talking about the hedge funds. It's only about 2% here locally. And then as far as cash buyers, we're hearing a lot of people say, hey, cash buyers are buying everything up. I can't compete if I'm getting a loan because I'm getting beat out by so-and-so. What do those numbers look like?
So in the region as a whole, when you consider Sac, Placer, Yolo, El Dorado, and our 4 counties, it's really about 20% of sales so far in 2024. And so, and that's a little bit higher than usual. But I think that speaks to, mortgage rates are higher and who can participate in the market and who's less sensitive to 7% rates. People with cash. But also, like you said, it's about 20%. What's normal? Well, I mean, normal. What is normal anymore, John? So, I think in a normal year, it might be closer to 15% or so. Okay. And so it's a little bit more elevated. But, you look in like Placer and El Dorado, and Nevada has the most cash, just above 30%. But Placer and El Dorado are typically flirting with somewhere around 23 to 25%. And so it just depends. There's more cash at higher prices compared to lower prices. You look above $1 million, and that's more like about 33% of all sales above $1 million. And so, again, it's not like dispersed throughout the whole entire market. First-time buyers, more FHA there, more VA there, but just not the vibe with cash sprinkled throughout the market. Yeah, totally get what you're saying, though. It's interesting that the higher price markets are cash, or higher price homes are cash. But that's the experience. That's what we've experienced as well. Like they won't even get an appraisal. They're like, "This is the home I want. Like I don't care necessarily what it's appraised for, but I think it's worth this much. I'm selling my other home that's worth this much, and I'm paying cash for this property, and I'm interested in it." And so it's less about the comps, and it seems to be more about what the buyer sees in that home, rather than the more subdivision type areas. Those are based heavily on comps. Are you seeing something similar? Or? Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think sometimes, a cash buyer with fat stacks will, simply, pay and say, I need this house. Yeah. You look at Jay-Z and Beyonce, they paid $200 million for a house in California, and maybe it was 205, 210, whatever the number was. And, I don't know. Did they get an appraisal? Probably not. Who knows? But, you didn't do that appraisal? I did not. You had to pass on it? You were booked? I would be like Jay-Z. I really like your music, but I'm not the guy for that. I don't know that market. So. All right. So we've talked about hedge funds, and we've talked about cash buyers. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the Bay Area buyer. How many people are actually moving from the Bay and buying homes in the Sacramento region?